Hi ladies, this is Sister Penland and I'm here to show you how to make my cookie recipe. Many of you have claimed that I am not giving you the correct recipe, but I promise I am, or I have in the past, and I'm going to show you exactly what I do. First, I melt my butter in the pan. I do not use the microwave because butter has a tendency to pop and splatter and get too hot in the microwave. This way you can control the temperature a lot easier. I have it on the lowest setting so it takes a minute to melt, and then I actually shut it off when it's about 3/4 of the way melted, and then I let it completely melt on its own without any additional heat. I have currently put a teaspoon of salt in my bowl. I'm going to add my eggs. Usually you should do them in a separate bowl in case you get a shell. And then a trick is if you get a shell, to use the shell to get the shell back out. It actually grabs it because it's really hard to pinch it with your fingers. Okay, and then I have 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 3/4 of a cup of white sugar, and I'm gonna wait until my butter is melted and then I'm going to add that, so I'll be right back. I'm gonna show you in my pan exactly when I turn off the butter. If you can kind of see, there's no bubbles, it's not super hot, and it's not completely melted. So I'm gonna shut off my heat and I'm gonna let it completely melt all by itself. And then I'm gonna add my vanilla to my bowl. I am a vanilla snob and this is my absolute favorite one. It'll cost you a pretty penny. It used to be a lot better of a deal, but now the price has significantly gone up, sadly, but I still use it, and I never measure my vanilla because vanilla bean paste is very sticky and I feel like I waste too much in my spoon. So I just pour it in the bowl, and the recipe calls for a teaspoon, but this is vanilla bean paste, but you can use any vanilla will work for sure. And now that my butter has melted pretty much all by itself, I am going to scrape this off. And the key with this recipe is not letting the butter get too hot. So I'm gonna pour that in, and we want every little bit of this butter into our bowl. Sorry, I have a crying baby at the door. Breanne, push pause. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so you want to whisk all of this together, but you don't want to overly whisk. You just want to, can you see this? Whisk it just until it's incorporated. And if it doesn't look thick, like this is actually a really good consistency. If it's a little bit thinner than this, and it's then you want to like just let it sit for about 10 minutes. If it's a really hot day, it'll have a tendency to not get as thick as quite as fast. But this looks really good, so I'm gonna pop that in the sink. And then next, we're going to add 2 1/4 cup of flour. This is my favorite flour. I love this flour. It has more protein than a regular flour, and it seems to rise better and just hold together better. So I use King Arthur flour, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pour this in. Next, I'm gonna use a 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And then I mix all my chocolate chips in at the same time. This is my favorite store brand chocolate chip. You can definitely get nicer chocolate chips online, but for the store brand, this is my absolute favorite. And I'm gonna put all 3 kinds in here. This is the milk, vanilla, and then the semi-sweet. And I pour it in right on top of my flour, because the less you mix this dough, the better. So then I'm just gonna incorporate all of this. And you don't wanna overly mix it. So as soon as you don't see any white, then you're done. And I had to wait until it cooled down today to make this, because this is a little bit of a finicky dough. And if it seems a little too runny, or if it's really hot, you can just pop it in the fridge for about 10 minutes and chill it, and then you'll have a better consistency so that things have a tendency to kind of mesh together better. Okay, I don't see any more white, and it looks like my dough is pretty uniform. And I did not make this gluten-free, otherwise I would be eating it right now. I made this regular. Okay, so, and then I use a cookie scoop just so that they're all about the same. So let me grab that. Okay. Here's my cookie scoop. And you don't want to use spray, ham, or anything on your cookie sheet because these cookie sheets are so embarrassing. I need to get some bars keepers on them to clean them. But you want to use parchment paper when you're baking cookies because if you use spray, your cookies will be flatter. They won't get a good rise. And so you definitely want to always use parchment paper when you're baking. Okay, now I'm gonna ball these. And I like to use a cookie scoop. You don't have to, you can just use a tablespoon. This just seems to be a lot faster and a lot easier. Although this is a really old cookie scoop and I need a new one because it now has a tendency to get stuck in there because this thing that pushes it out isn't as sharp as it once was. So I just pump these out really fast. And you want to bake these at 350 degrees for 11 to 12 minutes. Or if your oven has a tendency to run warmer or colder, which some ovens do, not all ovens are the same. I've learned that living in many different places and different homes. Then you'll just have to adjust your time accordingly. So I'm just gonna pop these in the oven really fast for about 11 minutes, and then as soon as they come out, I'll show you what they look like. And if you can see, they look a little doughy on the top, but you want them to look a little doughy as long as they're brown around the edges. That is how you tell if these cookies are done. So they don't look totally done on top, but if you look at the edges, it will. So that's a good key indicator. And I leave them on this pan for about a minute or two, and then I transfer them to a cooling rack so that they don't overly cook, because they're still gonna kind of bake a little bit right here. And so then I just set them on my cooling rack with my spatula when they're all done. And that is my chocolate chip cookie. Tomorrow night, you guys will have the opportunity to ask any questions, or if you have questions about ingredients or whatever. I did try and experiment with pie dough today. I am the worst at pie dough, but I found an amazing recipe, and I'm just gonna experiment a little bit more with it, and then I'll show you pie dough next if you're interested. Have fun, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Bye.